why I'm doing it. If this organization receives funding, then it makes sense that the Indigenous membership of this organization decide how that funding is spent, and that we are invited participants who may be able to help get those funds and get the audiences for those particular artists that the membership decides to support.
Thank you. And yes, that is definitely, I guess, one of those discussions which we hope to have here, but I suspect we're a little bit ambitious in our planning. But one of those discussions that we wanted to have was drilling down into logistics. So that, what are the mechanisms around that? And certainly it is always our intention that the decision making is by Indigenous.
In a non-Indigenous led organisation that's curating its own festival or its own program, how does a kind of the agency within a presenter, that's not something that every presenter is going to be willing to sublimate entirely to a membership organisation that isn't working within that institution. So
that's for the relational
It's
thing.
around the, no, but it's around the work and the work that's been created and the artists that are being supported. Say, for instance, this collective of First Nations organisations and Cross nations have got this pool of works. Here's what's on offer.
There's two different things.
So
It's like there's two different things going on here. The Native community, you know, in general, and we're all communities. We usually work by peer group hierarchy, and things are generally done by consensus. And that is a little longer, it's more tedious and more difficult, but you usually get to the right place. The mainstream is run by a top-down hierarchy, and it's not made, decisions are not made by consensus. We are all, it's also result-oriented. The Indigenous people that are more process-oriented. It's that consensus building where the creativity, the richness of it is. So, and gets us to the point that we are. So there's two different things going on here, and that's why this is happening in this room here. See?
And ultimately we're talking about supporting artists.
Ultimately, we're talking about supporting artists, individual artists. I just have I have many questions about how that proposal would work. Just questions about it. Again, particularly in the United States where we have no peak body that, how would we,
Well,
yeah, there's just questions.
yeah, and I think it's about everybody shifting their thinking about the role of a presenter. A presenter is not a person with a shopping list, right? It doesn't work like that. It's about relationships.
We handle the shopping list, you know, like, so how do we do
But
that?
how do we handle a shopping list is the question. I mean, where does the relationship building start? Because, you know, you can hand me a shopping list of Asian ingredients and I won't know what half of them are, right? So, the relationship has to begin by us having the conversations as the work is being developed. As, you know, being maybe invited to workshops or readings or, having opportunities to participate in whatever that kind of development process is earlier beyond before it's okay, well, here's the product, do you want to buy it? And I think that's the relationship that has to shift, right? Because it's not that. And generally, I think, I'll ask the presenters around the room, I mean, that's certainly not been my experience. My experience is generally we are presenting artists that we have relationships with.
Yeah. So I'm just going to get, Louisa wants to make a point, and then Simon. Not a point, they just want to say something.
I was just going to say that I agree with the idea that the money needs to sit with the artists and that we need to think about employing Indigenous staff to oversee the producing and the tour coordination from a logistical point of view. From just a residency perspective, like we're not talking about touring or work, but just exchanging, creating space and time to build those relationships in the first place. I've lost my point. I think everything we're talking about is possible. I as a non-Indigenous presenter, never imagined that any money would come to us, and I think this is an opportunity for systemic change. I think if we need to, it's our duty to work with our local communities to create culturally safe spaces into which we can exchange and build reciprocity and relationships, and that's not going to come necessarily quickly. I feel like if we go back to the idea that was raised yesterday around local chapters and local responsibility, perhaps at a national level, and each chapter identified like associate artists, and those artists were funded over a period of years, then we may be able to set up and facilitate opportunities for exchange. So we have ongoing relationships with their work. We're able to keep in touch with what they're developing. It's not necessarily about one show or an end product. It is about a process-driven approach. So I fully support that.
Sorry, Simon, Denise is just going to respond
Really
to that.
quickly, I've told her quick.
But remember, your organizations that are venues or presenters or however we want to address your title, you have money coming in that 99% of the Indigenous organizations and artists do not have. So please don't wait until we get Indigenous funding to fund Indigenous programming. Use your existing program and start building that as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, definitely. Simon.
I just wanted maybe to touch on sort of the curatorial kind of question, because I think that maybe, Valère, that's what you're sort of reaching at is, and I guess at the moment I would see the highest priority for my organisation in sort of decolonising our curatorial processes and finding new mechanisms for how decisions are made that give greater agency to our community and to diverse voices in our community broadly and specifically First Nations. And we've started that journey, but I guess my concern a little bit in some of this discussion is I think that the control needs to be ceded to our local community. I'd also be really reticent to think that there was any aspect of a sort of consortium, just to look at it, say, from our local community's perspective, it would be as galling for them to feel that some global network had decided that this was the work that they should see, as it would be galling to think that a middle-aged white man made the decision of what work they got to see or what connection, what artists they got to connect with. So, just that thing of sort of saying, if we construct it in such a way that it's saying it's still this network that's making the programming decision, that's problematic because we're now in a process of ceding control as much as we can of that curatorial to more local diverse voices. And so that's a delicate dance.
So I guess what I'm hearing,
Also say
yeah.
that as an individual artist, I don't want to be on any roster.
No,
No
no.
matter who's writing it. So that I think was a personal.
Yeah. I guess the network is not so much a, I don't know how to say this without, like I hear what you're saying, Simon, in terms of, yes, you don't want to dictate to the community, but I guess the network is supporting the decolonisation and the systematic change within your organisation so that you can then work with your local community in a truly meaningful way so that your programming and presentation is actually done in partnership with your local community. So I guess in terms of the network, it's actually supporting those presenting organisations to get to that point.
And I actually feel that that's the help that we really need.
Yeah,
Like when we talk about internal change,
yeah.
But nobody asks us.
well,
So, no, I just
Yeah.
rhetorically, I'm saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying that maybe there are just a few of us, but we don't get invited to things. I mean, maybe it's a presenter kind of model of working. In the theater, the opening night, everyone gets invited, like it's part of the thing. Even I get invited now, and I don't go to a lot of theater anymore. But the model or the system, the way that it's set up right now is, you know, some of us are the elders in our community, and we are not asked about anything. We're not, we don't have to, I don't have to play a role in everything. But I do have a history, and I do know my community, and I do have challenges with my community. Let's just put that on the table. So it's a different way of working where we actually share the conversation about what we might like to have, what Indigenous work is coming or would be preferred, who might like to play a role in that, with the presenter, with the curator.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yes, I know
exactly.
you are. So I just want to say that again, because, you know, at the end of January, there are 3 Indigenous artists coming into Vancouver, and I was not invited to anything. I was not informed that they were coming. I want my community, you know, that's a lot of work for me to do when I've got a festival to prep, and no one has let me know or asked asked who might like to come or anything. And that has got to change.
So that's what we try and address when
Yeah.
we talk about
Yeah.
the decolonisation
Yeah.
of each organisation,
Yeah.
of the network as a whole, collectively, individually. That is layered in every piece of this, I think.
Yeah.
So.
I'm spelling it out though, because I've been saying this for years.
Yeah, no, we want you to spell it out. We want to put this all in. So I'm just going to quickly run just through this longer term vision because then we will finish. And then we're going to jump to talking about the next gathering. And what I suggest, because we have to be particularly careful about what is put into this, what the language is and what the wording is, that I think that we need to just, once I go through this last section, park it for just un momento while we do, you know, a bit of operational logistical stuff, and then we can come back to it. And people who can stay, we would appreciate your help to keep working on this. And then people who do need to go can go. How does that all sound? Yeah. Okay. So just this final paragraph, 2 paragraphs, longer term vision. Subsequent years will include additional presenters and artists and development programs for Indigenous people interested in technical, writing and curatorial careers. A sustainable process to open the network beyond those participating in the pilot will need to be built. The GFNPN will advocate for the Indigenous sector, staying connected with advocacy efforts of WA, Western Arts Alliance, here in the US, Black Dance, Black Fellow Performing Arts Alliance in Australia, and the Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance in Canada, joining a coalition that empowers Indigenous artists and guarantees Indigenous leaders in the United States a seat at the table. If you're all happy with that paragraph, I do know that there's still more work to be done on the bulk of this. That is what we have drafted, and our intention for this forum to really get this right, so that we then can move forward to get the money and actually get this happening this year. This is to happen this year. This is not, you know, long-term, pie in the sky kind of thing. This is going to happen this year. Yeah.
I just want to take a quick breath, because I feel like the emotion in the room is getting super high, and every day has gotten emotional for different but related reasons. And I think all of us are here with really good intentions, but I want to just take a second to thank the 3 of you for even bringing this work forward and actually taking the incredibly courageous step of bringing it into a room full of people under a time crunch like the one we're under, and recognize that time is a construct, that's bearing down on us hard, and I feel like that's influencing some of the emotion in the room, and just take a second for a moment of gratitude, because I think that this work is not perfect, but it's a step in a direction that, for me, I was hearing, I just like to gently remind everyone that paradigm shifts take time. And for me, a paradigm shift has happened over the last 12 or 18 months of working with Emily on some of this. That has happened for me individually, and I've brought back to this organization, and I'm just seeing it bubbling up here. And so I just want to thank you guys for doing that, and just, if we can all just take that.
Hey everybody, how about we all stand up, shake around and take a deep breath. Shake hands, deep breaths. Grab some water, some of the coffee.
Yeah, well, I think that there may be, but yeah, right now, yeah.
Hi, Shannon.
Yeah.
How about we all agree 5 minutes? 5 minutes, no?
No, I think we keep
Keep it going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone wants to
All
go.
right. Can everybody please sit down now?
Take your
Sit
seat.
down.
No.
No.
Okay. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is, well, not talk about, but we're going to have another gathering this year because this is going to happen. So I guess we want to know when and where.
What are you thinking, like timeline? Like what's
Second half of this.
2019 would be the right time.
what's
And
second half?
There are a couple of you, there are some of you who have events in the second half that might be, that will have Indigenous work.
Yep.
Second week. That, there's an opening apparently in
Yeah.
Iowa in the second half of the year that, perhaps.
It's only been being planned for a year and a half now. You can drop it on me 6 months before we're supposed to go.
Because one of the things I guess that we also wanted to ask was First Nations dialogues, as we've called it here in New York, in a way was a way to showcase First Nations work to a range of presenters.
Yeah.
So, having that kind of, performance market. So the other question, I guess, apart from the gathering is, is there a want, say, for 2 gatherings a year, one being a nexus of work being presented and shown, and it can be, not the creation of a new market, but centered around existing events, and then a second gathering where it's more of a dialogue, talking, where people have space.
I could. It's really quick, but I could try to redirect back home. It might be a possibility that we could gather for the opening of the Indigenous Theater.
I just offer that WA is having a conference in Los Angeles in August. We'll be bringing together 17 at least Indigenous performers, showcasing performing at that time from North America.
Yeah. Okay, so Nate, yeah.
Also, Native Earth has a festival. If they can't do it, the NEC is a bigger space, obviously.
Yeah.
But we have our Wasaga Begins to Dance Festival, but it's in November.
Yeah.
It could also, it's a development festival, so any artists, we do showcase Australian, we had American artists this year,
Yeah.
New Zealand artists. So there is the opportunity for us to gather there too.
I guess the most important question though is, as you know, we don't have any money. So,
that would be my next thing too, because I don't have any money right now.
Yeah.
No, I think it's figuring out.
So it's like we could trigger maybe the Tri-Nation agreement or something to support that, but like.
Yeah.
I think it'd be about trying to find some resources that might be covering local ground expenses, and then everybody's got to get themselves there, or their organisations have to get them there.
Like we have space, we have programming already. We have like a talking stick style industry series curated by Lindsay LaChance in the first week, and our second week at this time of our launch is sparsely programmed. So that might be a space where we could house this in the fourth week of September 2019. Yeah, like the last week of September 2019. But if you were to come, it'd be great if you came for the whole thing, and then the Global First Nations dialogues could happen in that second week, because it is at this time something that we're still looking to populate. I mean, we have programming throughout that week, but it's not as intense as the first week of our launch. So that's an opportunity.
Darwin Festival is in August. Probably less realistic for that to be 19, but like that could definitely be 20. We had lots of Australian Indigenous programming. I mean, potentially it could be this year. Darwin is really far away. Like, I get that for most people, particularly given that two of the key countries are on the other side of the world, that that's maybe less realistic in 6 months' time. But anyway, it does exist.
Beautiful. There's lots of mangoes. It's very warm. There's great markets.
It is very beautiful.
It's a fantastic art market that happens.
That's right.
Obviously.
Yeah. Anyway.
Thank you for, I mean, I think let's follow up those conversations after this and try and lock something into place as soon as we can. Personally, I find doing something like this in New York City in January a total nightmare. The time pressure that Craig was talking about is so much more extreme in this January frame in New York City. And I know it's convenient because everybody's coming anyway, but it's very difficult around the conferences and around the festivals and around everything else. It is a really good showcase.
And we do want to keep this transnational and global, so it does need to move as well.
Look, I think we've got a lot of feedback on the document. We've got some ideas about another meeting. Is there a consensus in the room to continue this work? I mean, the Indigenous leaders in this room are doing this work every day, so my apologies there. Is there consensus in the room for us as a network to continue trying to do this? It feels like there is, and that we should continue this. Yeah.
There's just a couple of really big distinctions that have come out in this conversation, which need to be
Right.
Overall, I feel like the project is important. Like the overarching, the name of this whole endeavor is why I'm here, right? Global First Nations Performing Network, right? Like we want that, and so I want that from where I'm positioned. I think it's an important endeavor. We gotta do it right.
I think it's really important that we hear that gets heard. That people do think it is an important endeavour, because we forget when we get stuck sometimes in the detail that the bigger picture is where needs to be done right, but is really critical.
And I just want to reiterate, when you get to that place of discomfort, that's when the work is actually happening. So don't be afraid of that feeling. That's the best way to create the work that we want to do together. So, and so, if we're all nice, then we actually haven't told you anything or shared anything, right? So take it.
Yeah, it's not like the work is like you said, the Indigenous artists in the room have been do this decolonizing work their entire lives.
That's right.
Like our life's work is to do that, and so if we are going to come into your brick wall, and it's going to make you very fucking uncomfortable. But that is actually the work being done. That's the itch. That's the scratch. That's the wound, right? And the emotion that comes out of this is well earned, actually.
Can I ask if it feels good for you, for us to be in the room with you at this point? Like, I guess, I really want to be here. I'm super excited about the possibility of this. as like an ally presenter, my commitment feels really like personal for like the rest of my life, like not just Darwin Festival, like wherever I go next, I want to take this work with me. But I also really respect that there's like a whole lot of conversation that, you know, I can only listen to. And like right now, for the next hour, if you're like, we would prefer you to leave so that we can talk in a more focused way without feeling bad that you're, I don't know, like, I'm also prepared to hear that, like.
Yeah, and that's a thing. Like that's an actual thing and we are grateful, and we do welcome you to the circle. But there is also a need for us, for the Indigenous artists who have gathered, who've come to Lenape territory, who've come here, who've sacrificed their time to invest in this, to actually connect. And it's been really fraught to do that in this process. And that's been a huge source of frustration, I think, amongst the Indigenous artists in the room. And we're great. It's great that you're here. We want allies, we want partners. You hate that word. We want friends, right? And we need that, and we need, but there are some aspects of this that is like, we're starting from square one. And it's like, that is triggering and difficult for a lot of us, I think, who've been doing this work for decades, right? To have to educate from point zero. And I know that work is important, and we encounter it all the time. But it is also, for this Global First Nations Performing Arts Network to work, the Global First Nations have to have their space and time to figure out what the fuck that looks like.
Yeah. So what I'm going to suggest are two... Yeah. So what I'm going to suggest, and it was something that we talked about earlier, for future gatherings, that we do ensure that there is a space made for that to happen. But in this very time and place, we do have another room. So what I'm going to ask you, would you like for all the First Nations people, we can gather, have our own closed session, talk, catch up, discuss everything that we need to. And you know, the presenters and other people, if you want to stay in this room, you can also have a talk. Or the other option, which I'm just going to chuck in as a wild card, is do you want to discuss any current works or potential works about, you know, touring or anything like that, or, you know, or do you just want to go with the first option?
My feeling as an ally, a partner, is that I really want deep friend with somebody in the room. That I really feel like I need to step out and allow you to gather. And I've done that from yesterday. And if that is what you want to do, similar to feelings, just so happy to do.
So we do have more than one space.
But it's also great for you partners, for you friends, to gather and debrief, have your conversations that, because that's the other part of the aspect of the network, right? Yeah. You guys need to come together and figure out how you can partner collectively together into support of our work, and we need to gather to figure out how that works as well.
I just wanted to say one thing to the group. I want to say thank you for being here. I would rather work with you guys as allies, because I can tell you something. My husband and I have been courted for, I guess, since 4 years ago by the Chinese. So, you know, the world looks at how things are being done and how people are treated and everything. And of course, their human rights record is not, you know, stellar either. And then I have to wonder, when I am speaking and what's being translated, as I don't speak Chinese, what are they really saying? So I decided, you know, I would much rather work with you here. You know, I think that this is where we need to be, because I think the Chinese have a whole agenda. Let me tell you, they got a lot of money. They treated us like royalty. So just, you know, yeah, let's work together.
So what we're going to do is move the... Yeah.
When we're talking about this, Vallejo, for you and for Emily and for everybody, it's because we care. And what happens is usually people in this country, they come and tell you what they have decided for you. They don't ask the people who've been hurt by all of this what they need. And we were not in the New York community, we were involved in the planning. Like, I had no idea what was going to happen here for the 3 days. But we did come, and we gave you our best. We do appreciate it, and we do care about everybody here, but it's too painful to keep making the same mistakes and go along with it and not at least saying something. And it's meant for the right reasons, okay? Okay.
I'm grateful for the.
And I know, and you know, Emily, that's true for you too. I mean, we're saying that because we care. And because we've been hurt by it. We're older, we've been hurt longer.
Yeah, I think one thing to acknowledge is that this is, as I've said before, nothing new. There has been many, many years and many people who have come before us in building the ground beneath what we're trying to do. So room 202, I think you said.
Yeah, it's on
It's on the second floor for presenters, stakeholders, observers, basically if you're non-Indigenous. You know.
Angela, I think it would be really important in any of the meetings when we do this that we all have the opportunity to break out, meet, come back, share what we discussed.